Welcome to the ACSA Co-Administrators Network event. My name is Dr. Julio Mir, Assistant Principal, Rancho Mirage High School in Palm Springs Unified School District, Region 19, and the ACSA Co-Admin Committee Chair. I will be your host and moderator this afternoon. This event has been brought to you by ACSA Member Services. Thank you, Margie, and your team, and the Co-Administrators Council. Thank you to ACSA Partner Blackboard. We will be hearing from them later. Thank you to Josh Peterson from ACSA IT Department. Thank you, panelists. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. At this time, I would like our panelists to introduce themselves. We will begin with Dr. Frank Miranda, please.
Thank you, Dr. Julio, and good evening, everybody out there. ACSA, just an honor and to be part of the panel this afternoon and be with all of you. And so thank you for the invitation for that. Like Dr. Julio said, I'm Dr. Frank Miranda. I'm actually the I'm the superintendent of the Colton Joint Unified School District, located about 50 miles east of Los Angeles. We like to say about 50 miles east from the beach too, as we recruit people. And so some laughter's there. I've been the superintendent here for a little bit over a year and a half. And yes, started almost when the pandemic hit. So what a way to start. I've been with Colton for over 13 years though, and an educator for 20 something years. I've had many positions in education, instructional aid, special ed, bilingual aid, athletics aid, PE aid. And so I've had the opportunity to serve as an assistant principal at the secondary level, of course, a teacher. I was a math grade, 7th and 8th grade math teacher in the Pomona Unified School District before I became an administrator in San Bernardino City Unified at the largest middle school in the county at the time in 2003, Arrow View Middle School, which had 2,576 kids at the time. So that was the largest middle school at the county where I really got great experience. I came to Colton in 2008, became an elementary school principal. So I went from middle to elementary. And then I spent 5 years as the elementary principal at McKinley Elementary, and then moved up to the director of human resources. So my superintendent said, I have a great idea. I think you'd be a great business guy. I said, I don't know about that, but you listen to your superintendent. And I became the director of fiscal services. And did that so I was director of HR for 2 years, director of fiscal services for 2 years, all the budget transfers, just a lot of fiscal stuff. And then assistant superintendent of business for 3.5 years before my mentor and my superintendent, Jerry Almendarez, left for Santa Ana Unified. And then I was appointed as the superintendent. Colton, for you, just to give you some background, has about 22,000 kids. We are declining enrollment. We're situated we have 3 geographic areas: Grand Terrace area, Colton, and then also Bloomington. And so we have about 30 schools. And so I think we're a mid-sized urban district. And it's just an honor to serve as the superintendent of such a diverse district and the things that we're doing here. So just an honor to be here and just look forward to the conversation this afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Julio.
Thank you, Dr. Frank Miranda. At this time, we'd like to have Dr. Carmen Lynn Day introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lynn Carmen Day here. And I'm currently the superintendent at Upland Unified School District. And yes, I recognize a handful of beautiful faces on the screen, so that's really awesome. And a wonderful trustee, Sherman Garnett, that's also on the call. My background, well, first I should just start out by saying I am a mother, I think fairly successful at that, and wife. And on top of that, in my background, I started out actually athletic coaching. That's how I got tied into working with students. And through that process, I became a counselor. I became an assistant principal, a high school principal at a smaller school, and then a much larger school, over 3,100 students. And then from there, I was an assistant superintendent and got all of these positions. Actually, I got recruited to. And then a chief academic officer in Riverside Unified. So I recognize a couple faces from there. And into this position as Upland superintendent, where I did not get recruited. I had to actually assertively go out and attempt to get a job when I wanted to become a superintendent. So I really look forward to sharing with you whatever I can do to help and support. And I will definitely, when we're done, if interested, I can also put my number in the chat box. So thank you. I'm excited to have this dialogue with you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have Mrs. Victoria Gutierrez introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Violet Gutierrez. I'm Director of Human Resources for San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. And just to give you an idea of the scope, that's about the largest, what we say the largest geographical county in the lower 48 states. So we work as an intermediary support provider here at the county for all of our districts. I'm very excited to have this opportunity as well. I come to the table having formerly worked at schools in food services as I worked my way through college, young girl, got my degree, had a principal there who really thought I'd do a great job in the classroom and tapped me for that to sub, and I began my route there. I was certainly a school teacher, started in elementary for 2 years and went on to get a single subject credential, moved into high school, went on to be a high school administrator, secondary level. I sound very familiar to Frank Miranda, so I'm not actually replicating these notes. They're actually my notes. I did work at Pomona Unified School District as well, high school administrator, went on to be a principal over in elementary, middle school, also had a preschool under my purview during the course of that time, worked with community college and some universities, also have spent 4 years teaching at Cal State San Bernardino, most specifically personnel administration classes. So the folks that are aspiring to be future leaders are taking classes and going out there and seeking leadership in that regard. And so that's an absolute honor. I've had the opportunity to serve our community here in San Bernardino on the Equal Opportunity Commission. I was appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And then I've also had the opportunity to complete my Chief Business Official certification through FCMAT as well. And I'd like to also share that I was able to serve the Riverside County Office of Education and the Management Leadership Team. And while I was there, I worked with the authorizing of charter schools, really monitoring them and ensuring compliance and guidance and things of that nature. So from that passion, I was a founding board member and served for 7 years on a nonprofit authorizing group for charter schools that would build capacity for administrators to ensure that they have the ability to certainly provide leadership and speak to their schools and things of that nature. So as everyone stated earlier, it's always a joy to have an opportunity to share and impart, and certainly we glean from one another. And so I look forward to all of the rich nuggets we're going to take away this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, we would like to have Dr. Ron Williams introduce himself.
You're muted, Ron.
Okay. Yeah, they installed a new computer in my office yesterday afternoon, so I'm discovering all the new glitches with it because some of the information did not transfer from the old computer to the other. Am I supposed to be doing an intro to myself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes. My name is Dr. Ron Williams. I'm the superintendent for the Victor Valley Union High School District. I've been here about 7 or 8 years, and beforehand I worked for San Bernardino, the County Office of Education. I've worked in multiple capacities from assessment to categorical programs, and it's totally a pleasure for me to be here. I apologize for being late.
Thank you, Dr. Williams, and thank you, panelists. At this time, we're going to proceed with our event, and we have some wonderful questions that we would like to acknowledge to you. And the first question is if you have two strong candidates as a principal for one of your schools, what do you look for as a tiebreaker criteria? And that can go to anybody. So I'll repeat the
Okay,
question.
I'll go ahead and start because I'm not that, I'm one of those students, if someone doesn't start talking, I'll try to figure out real quick what to say. But I have a couple of thoughts. One is we're always doing an appreciative inquiry prior to hiring our principals. And so typically we're looking for a good fit on our leadership team as a whole. And we're also looking for a good fit for that staff who has just given us all this content to work with. So what we're looking for is that fit, if there's two good candidates, and the fit of the school foremostly. And then the other thing is that we can, I think if you can see in the person what kinds of differences they can bring to the table, that broadens the perspective of our team as a whole. Those are probably two of the big things that I would be looking for. I know some of the other questions will enhance this one, but those are where tiebreakers come in.
Certainly, I'd like to piggyback on that as well. We look for energy level, the credibility in the responses, ensuring that they can execute the information and that their leadership style would be applicable for the respective context. So those are the kinds of things you kind of seek out when you have very strong candidates and they're pretty neck and neck. You really want to think about where are they going to be contextually and in terms of what sort of style are they bringing to the table and how does that align with the personalities there. And then what sort of energy level do they bring as well? You know, are they high energy? Are they able to respond and present? Do they have the ability to have credibility in their responses and things? And so you're really looking for that.
Yeah, no, those are great points. So just to add to that and echo some of the things that have been said, I think fit is so important when you're trying to place somebody at a school site. You as a superintendent or personnel person, you're looking at the global and across the board, you're saying, okay, and we get that all the time. I've been interviewing principals over the week quite a bit. And so you say, where are they going to fit at? So you really have to know these folks and what really their core values and what they represent. And does it match to the vision that you have for the district and that school? Because like I said before my introduction, we're diverse. We have Grand Terrace schools, very different than Colton. Colton doesn't want to change the schools. Then Bloomington's a different ballgame. So you have to find that right fit, and that really boils down to values, and also do they have a balance? I look for balance in a candidate. I love people that work, but also are you balanced, and are you going to hold yourself accountable to results? You know, I like to tell people that, you know, my core values are respect, responsibility, and results. You got to get the job done. And so have they been a past performer? You know, the best indicator of future performance is the past performance. So what have you done to get the job done? And then do you have the emotional intelligence for the job? This is, you know, being a principal, I'll just tell you, superintendent, and many jobs I had, and you'll hear this, it's the best job in the world. So why do you leave it, right? You know, but because you get called, it's a calling. So is this a calling for you, and or is this just a job? And so you learn that really quick through experience, and so those are really some of the things I look forward. I look for to really separate two candidates that have the same qualities and experience and all that.
And I would just add, you know, based upon what's already been shared, obviously experience, knowledge, education, and being a good team player as well. And I think what was mentioned just a few moments ago was the fact that I am more interested in results. A lot of times when people are talking about themselves, they talk about what they've done in the form of tasks rather than give me the results. And because I think that that's a much better indication of the leadership, the results, than just the number of things that they did.
Thank you, panelists. Second question. Besides the obvious, what are some things that you look for on a resume that separates one from the pack? Please give both positive and areas of growth or negative examples.
I'm happy to start on this one. So something that really does stand out on a resume is when folks are able to utilize all-inclusive statements, whether it be the use of equity, diversity, things of that nature that really reflect their understanding of the need to reach out to all students. Discussions on the clear references to their knowledge, skills, and abilities on the resume that reflects some juxtaposing to the particular job posting that shows they really did take time to reference the job posting and then identify clearly what those essential job functions are, what are those areas that need to be addressed. But most specifically, you're looking for language in the objectives and things that really identify that this person has the ability to navigate a kaleidoscope of context with the understanding of working in a multifaceted space. So, and one that really reaches out and shows that they recognize the importance of really addressing the audience for that particular district, space, context, site, etc.
No, that's really good. That's great. Just to add, beside the obvious, because we can spend an hour on the obvious stuff that I won't get into, that hopefully people get that. When you see an application and you see the writings and you're looking at the candidate, do they see themselves as part of the larger organization? So for example, do they demonstrate in their application that they have ability to lead? Because we're looking for leaders and influencers in the organization to be part of a larger system, because you might be at one school site and then you might be moved for whatever reasons. So I'm looking for people looking for leadership ability there. So like for first-time administrators, do they demonstrated or have they demonstrated to be an influencer as a teacher? Have they participated? For example, I remember as a teacher in Pomona, I was a chair of the department, of the mathematics department. I led the Mesa team. I was a coach, basketball coach. I was a football coach. So do you have those under your belt as an influencer, and were you part of the WASC committee where you, what did you do that demonstrated that you provided influence and you could do that at a higher level and establishes that credibility? I like to say to be incredible, you have to be credible. So do you have credibility? And I stole that from a podcast, by the way, because I'm a podcast junkie. And I encourage all of you to do that. And then last, I'll say that, can you tell from the application that they're dedicated to continuous improvement? Are you growing? What are you doing to continue to grow? I've done all the ACSA academies, Superintendent's Academy, Business Academy, HR Academy. I mean, nobody told me to do all that. I just did because I'm a lifelong learner. If they're a veteran principal, for example, have you demonstrated what's your experience? And valued experience is not the number of years really that matters, is really, do you have that valued experience in your jobs to get to that level? I'll just say that I just hate I statements in applications. It's about we, teamwork. Ron talked about that, teamwork. And so that's really what I'm looking for.
And I'll just follow up because I just love following you, because you just basically just steal all of my thunder and I just put the icing on the cake. And I think that, when you're looking at a resume, I say, what has this person done beyond the basic job responsibilities? And I think you just mentioned it earlier, and I'll put a plug in for the ACSA academies. I don't think there's any other professional development that you can get a better return on, you get a full year for the cost of just attending one conference. And I think the quality of the academies are so good, and the breadth of knowledge that each one of the candidates receive as a result of the number of presenters that they come in. And then flipping over on the negative side, longevity is important. You don't want a person that's every 2 years that they're moving on, unless, and of course, they're progressing in their profession. And I think that you really, really have to, those were just two, and I'll leave it at those two for now.
I like
Thank you.
the tenure one was one that I had thought of early as well. Like it's good to show that you're committed and that you're not jumping from job to job. I agree. And I also have to put a plug in for ACSA academies too, because I'm sorry, but because you have so many resources that come in, you have a speaker or more every session, and you usually get panels. So you get so much networking. It's unbelievable. So I have to plug for that. My quick ideas, you think it's easy to say that it's accurate and clear that there's a level of expertise, but I don't know that I see that on all resumes. So I'm going to mention it. And then I also think that I'm with Ron as far as like something that's above and beyond. And this is where I believe that there's ways of stating outcomes that are super powerful in resumes. And it shows that you've been part of making some movement, especially for student groups that I think most districts are working at student getting disproportionality in place and fixing that. And then the last thing for me is I like a touch of creativity. It catches my eye. I took a risk and put some creativity into my resume when I came to this job. I put a little lavender and some loop there, and it may get you out for some people, but it depends if you're creative and if you're an ideator and if you want to work someplace that might catch the eye, then that's just a little additional idea for you. Thank you.
I love that comment because I see a student from Cal State who asked a question I'd like to respond to just for good measure. She asked, is the letter of interest as important as the resume? And I would just like to advise everyone, everything is equally as important. They're all screening tools, whether it be the application, your letter of introduction, your resume, everything is equally as important. And they ask, how does one know what the fit the district is looking for? One really doesn't know. So be aware of that. You can do your best research, understand the mission and the vision and those pieces, but that needs to come to life, and you need to breathe life into your resume and things so that they can recognize that.
Can I add just from my perspective on that? I do take more importance on the letter than the resume, because you can see someone in a letter a little bit more personality. And so I do believe that that's the place where you can acknowledge the values of the organization based on your research, and you can usually in the responsibilities they're asking for certain things. You can make a connection in that letter very well and explicitly, and I think that that's wise, as long as you really feel that way. Don't do it just to get the job, because that's not always the best thing, and we can talk more about that later.
Absolutely, and reminding you that when the screeners look at your documentation, they're juxtaposing everything against those expectations of experience and qualifications. And so if they don't find it in your letter, they're looking for it in your resume. So you want to remember that all those pieces really are puzzle pieces to the picture of who you really are.
Thank you. The next question, it fits perfectly. What are 2 or 3 things that you hope a candidate will share or reveal during the interview? What could be red flags and why?
Well, I'll take the step out on it first. I like to, the humility, the empathy, civility, the ultimate goal, and then sharing with us their ultimate goal. If this is just a stepping stone, share it. But if they have other aspirations, share that with us as well. And I think red flags, sometimes people go from one position to the other based upon income. And if you're just moving to follow the money, you will eventually run into a wall. And I think you need to follow your passion, rather.
I think that's great. So I'll follow Dr. Williams on this one. Why not? Just to piggyback on that. Exactly. I think that, resume, the application is not going to tell the whole story. In an interview, probably you won't be able to get a chance, but at least you'll reveal your self-awareness, the soft skills that you might have. I know this virtual world's it's difficult, but you can get that. And so that really is when somebody asks about a good fit. Well, we know our school sites and the staff that's there. So we know what kind of skills, possibly the personality, which is critical for the success of a person. So during that interview, you'll reveal some of that. Whether or not the candidate or the person, whoever's applying for the job, will be a good fit for, I dare say, the culture, right? Because that's important. And so that culture at the school site is critical. So, look, there's a lot of, and we're fortunate. We have a lot of qualified candidates, highly qualified candidates. With all the educational qualifications, professional development, and experience. But like Dr. Williams said, Ron said, you can't communicate your vision in a resume, really. I mean, you might be able to do in a letter of introduction. So the interview is an opportunity to really reveal what your vision is, what your passion is, your personality, and your leadership style. We want people with passion, that are confident. And really for me is how prepared you are. We're not professional interviewers by nobody is. So the interviews are tough. I have friends that are extremely smart. When they get to an interview though, they fall apart. And I tell them, prepare. So I'm looking for a leader that is self-aware, who is adaptable, and demonstrates, again, for me, I want somebody that's balanced. I get it. You got to get the job done. And I think Ron also mentioned empathy and the drive to, it's about students. So balance in that you need to have the balance because I want you to have longevity in the job. I want you to demonstrate that to your staff that you have to have that balance. I don't want somebody to come in and say, you got to get the job done, but, putting down the hammer every single time. That's really important, especially now during the pandemic, that social emotional piece. I don't want somebody day one, like I started out as a principal and said, we could do better. That was not the right way to start out. Build relationships first. So anyway, so I'm getting way too much into other stuff here, but I think you guys kind of get that. Show us who you are, what that vision is, and your passion. It's more important than anything else. Because we can teach you the technical skills. We just can't teach you that piece.
Okay, I'll go, Violet. That was too much of a pause, so I'm going. So I had a couple of thoughts on this, and this might not be how everyone feels, but I'm really eager to get to know the person, like your story, because it's been interesting. The last couple of people I've hired, I haven't been, because it's on Zoom, it's a little bit harder. I have what I consider excellent intuition, but the problem is on Zoom, I can't feel it as much. And so I really like to know a little bit personal about individuals. So if there's ways to bring in some personal elements into some of the stories that you tell or some of the examples that you provide that show your strengths, again, on the more relational side. As you're talking about your expertise, you can bring in a collaborative spirit. You could even bring in a personal example about something you do in the community too, because that is really important to me to know that. I also like to know that that our candidates know who they are and what their values are, because it needs to be represented so we can find a good match. And the other thing that I would hope that they reveal is that they did a little research on the district, because we really are a family of leaders. And you don't want to be misplaced in a family that's not a fit for you. And we don't want to have to do anything about that once we get you. So I think that, I know that sounded kind of tough, but that's how I feel. And that you honor other perspectives, that you really are a person that honors people with different thoughts, a parent who you may not think you agree with, that all of those things need to be revealed to me in order for you to be part of our awesome leadership team. Thanks.
Thank you. I wanted to share a little bit about the red flags, because I know that was a part of the question there. And so I kind of paused because I wanted to think, how best do you articulate this? And I thought, if you use words like, you want to make sure that folks are not negative because maybe they're not reflective, right? So the red flags would be negative comments during the course of the interview, discussion or references about previous leadership that doesn't really demonstrate respect or relationship. Also, you want to listen for inaccurate responses that doesn't really demonstrate research, right? And then you're also listening for whether or not they're not even providing enough information. You know, there is an interview style called, I believe it's the Haberman style, where you really listen to see whether or not they provide enough responses to the question, and you're counting them in your head. So sometimes you'll find that someone will answer the same question with just one real long response, whereas others kind of hit it innumerable times in 5 different ways. And so, you know, wow, they're really able to respond to this and kind of mitigate your gap in understanding who they are. And so I would say that the red flag, not enough information, inaccurate responses, negative, stoic, low enthusiasm, low energy, and any comments that would in any way be disrespectful to anyone in a previous leadership role where they have been. So that was kind of where I wanted to share about the, you know, the red flags.
Thank you. This next question kind of fits in with the previous question. What are the traits of a strong interviewer that you consider in making a final decision for a finalist in your position?
Well, I think Violet, you know, she hit the nail on the head and really, it really starts with confidence, I think, and just being confident going in there. And in order to be confident, you have to be well prepared. Lynn mentioned about doing research on the district. It's obvious when you don't do that, and you ask a question about where the district's headed. So like in my district, if you're not aware, for example, of the vision work that we're doing, the DSDP, and you know, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I apologize, but the National Institute of School Leadership and things like that, then, you know, it's pretty obvious that you haven't done your homework. But so when I think a strong interviewer is answering the questions, all parts of it. I think a lot of, as we look at the questions, you notice that there are multiple parts. There's 2 or 3 questions sometimes, and candidates, because you're nervous, and that's okay, right? We all get nervous in an interview. You miss parts, and I'll just shout out to Dr. Harold Volkemer in San Marino City. I remember when he hired me as assistant principal, which I was shocked because I was a teacher in Pomona, and I remember him pulling me to the side. He said, you know, if you're going to get to the next level, young man, and you know, at the time, he said, you know, I encourage you to make sure you read the question. There's 3 questions there. Don't miss that. It's huge. A lot of candidates, you know, you get that one question, but there's 3 parts. You only answer one part. And so that really, and I think, so it's really being calm, cool, and collective. It's hard. So you have to prepare and just take those deep breaths and it's okay. And I think also, and I'll end with this, and I'm sure my colleagues can add a lot more than this, is if you're an assistant principal going for a principalship, you got to think like a principal. You got to not think like an assistant principal now, because now you're responsible for a school site. So whatever position you're trying to attain, you got to put yourself in that. You got to say, as the principal, these are the things I will work on. This would be the vision. This is, whatever. So, that's hard, but those are, I think, valuable because it shows your confidence. I go back to that confidence. We want confidence people, that can handle that pressure. So, and an interview, honestly, is a pressure situation. So you got to be able to handle that, because a lot more's to come down the road. So.
And I'll just follow up, Frank, because I just love being the echo chamber for him. I think, confidence, you can be confident without being arrogant. I think you have to be courageous to take on those challenging conversations, and a broad knowledge base. A lot of times, if you were the assistant principal or whatever, you focused on that area that your responsibilities that fell upon you, but you hadn't taken out the time to learn, go beyond that. And I think that the person needs to be self-validating. That's where that self-confidence come in, that they know who they are. They're not dependent upon someone else to validate them. Those were just a few extras that I would add to what Frank already said.
Yeah, and also I just would like to say we've had a great opportunity here at the county to see a lot of folks apply, you can imagine. And so we're in interviews quite frequently. And some of the things that I remember that stick out in some of those interviews that I've observed is just high level, positivity, optimism, someone who has poise, presence, and can speak with authority. They're able to just, it's something you can't quite define, but they have it when they enter the room, that presence. And they're going to be able to execute and people will follow. You really are looking for those nuances.
I agree. And I'll just add a couple of things, but humble confidence. So over time, I feel like I figured that one out, but humble confidence. I also think that show your expertise through some very concise example that was successful. And then if you can, how you failed forward in something. And then the third thing is that I really like, and I can see it because it's the type of leader I want leading a school, is somebody who can make a mistake, authentically own up to it and fix it well. Thanks.
Thank you. If someone is successful as a finalist for a superintendent's interview, what qualities or knowledge should a candidate possess or instill with the superintendent during the interview? So if we're blessed to get to your level and we made it to the finals, what qualities would you be looking for during?
I think Dr. Miranda kind of laid that out for us. What did he say? He said, if you don't know what DSDP is, then maybe you don't know what's happening at our organization, right? He said it. I think he really defined it. He captured it in that phrase. When you get to that level, you really want to make sure that you understand the heartbeat of the organization. You can articulate the organization's vision, the mission, the direction, what the specific needs are for subgroups. You would know that there's maybe 81% unduplicated, or maybe the folks are in the orange tier because they're English learners at this point and haven't moved up, or you would know those types of things about a district, right? So when you're in front of the superintendent, you want to have that ability to share that you're passionate, but most importantly, you want to have the ability to reimagine and come to the table with maybe some ideas that you've formulated as you've gone through the process to maybe help mitigate some of those gaps. It's not enough just to study up, because anybody can do that, right? So now that I've researched your organization, I'm passionate about being an advocate and a candidate, and I've made it to this level. I want to share with you also some insight that I've gleaned as I've done that research, and I've got some ideas. And, I was really thinking about what my first 90 days would look like, or something to that effect. So you really want to tug on those heartstrings and really let them know, listen, I'm in it for the exact reason you are, and that's students' success and achievement. And so these are some ideas I'd like to present.
No, that's great. I think when you get to that superintendent level, you've demonstrated that you have the technical ability. In Colton, and I'm sure a lot of districts have this rigorous process for hiring applicants. 1, 2, the first one, technical, second's presentation, 3 is with the cabinet and the suit. And I pretty much ask questions about why are you the person that I should recommend to the Board of Education, and I'll ask questions about really relationships. So now you're probably going to get the job if you're going to get there. Now it's probably top 2 candidates, and there's usually multiple openings or whatever. But so what are you going to do now that you get it? Because getting the job is a lot easier than keeping the job. So what are you going to do with this opportunity? You should already come with a mindset, a plan, whether it's written down. You don't have to give it to but that's pretty impressive. You already come in, you already have an idea your first 90 days, what you're going to do, and a plan, because yeah, I want to know now, okay, so if you get the job, what are you going to do? What's next? And how I can support you. So yeah, so I hope that helps.
And I would just probably ask that, for you to be yourself. If you come in being yourself, you can replicate that and you'll have a long tenure. If you come in trying to be something that you're not, it will uncover itself within time.
100% agree. Be yourself, because that's ideal. You're going to be part of the team at this point. So what would you be contributing to the team? I think is kind of goes back to what are you bringing to the table? Have some ideas. And I think that I'm not going to add anything else. Just the idea that you have the ability to serve. I mean, these are style things, of course. I don't know that everyone has the same idea, but I know in the districts I've been in, we hire because we know that individuals can serve, that they have the ability to be patient so they can get good things done because they built strong relationships, and that they understand the importance of a process and not just pushing through when sometimes the process is necessary, and always getting the desired outcome. And that's all. But most importantly, be yourself and bring something to the table. You're part of a team.
Thank you, panelists. We've come to the last question. I'm taking a deep breath and I'm staying calm and collected, learning from you all. At the end of the interview, if we're blessed to get to the final interview, what questions or closing comments do you recommend that we say or don't say, or do you prefer?
I'm going to jump out and say, I don't like questions. I've had people say, well, what are you looking for? Or, I don't know. I just don't know why I don't, but that's just me. But I do like when somebody says what their contribution is going to be, and they weave in the things that are important to our district, such as servant leadership, their ability to work hard, and that they're relational and they can get the job done. So just a simple short phrase or two that communicates that they're bringing that to the table.
And I would probably add to what Lynn has stated there, it's a question that falls within a number of our interview structures, why they feel that they're the best candidate. And it's an opportunity to showcase maybe we didn't ask the question, but information that they would like to share with us. We have this philosophy that we only hire #1 draft choices. So we want to give them the opportunity to showcase their skill sets.
I like the way that Lynn kind of said that, because she's very transparent, and those questions sometimes are tough, right? You have to listen to them. But if you can make it a wondering, I don't have questions necessarily, but a few wonderings, and I'm going to continue to research, how I might help tackle some concerns that are being addressed or mitigate some gaps. And, I'm going to, kind of research some more on certain areas that I've had a little bit of inquiry about, but you would never want to ask anything that would be inappropriate or poor taste. Like, what side am I going to be placed at? Or, I prefer this side over that side, or I don't know. You never know what you're going to hear at the question point. So kind of in agreement, those questions are tough.
I agree with that. I'm okay with questions about the process. If you're coming from the outside, especially, and you're new, and I'm okay with that. And usually we try to answer that at the beginning, but asking about what are next steps, I'm good with that. I think after that, I think you really shouldn't ask much after that about, salary, do your homework about, if I don't get the job, how about another position or something? I don't know. I mean, we've heard it all. I'm selling books on the side. Do you want to buy one? These are true stories, by the way. You hear it all. But I think it's important. The closing statement, I like them. To close it up. And I like the idea, Lynn talked about being creative a little bit. I'm not that creative like her probably, but at the end, I remember like when I got the director job, I made a statement that I just thought was, just to close up, I said, I know the districts or the HR is the heart of the district. I want to be part of that. Boom. That just sealed the deal. And I remember someone asked me, I said, for me, this is, I stole this from somebody. For me, this is not a job. This is an occupation. Something like that left them with an impression that, and that was it. And then you drop the pin. You move on. So you have to. You can't, like, I love what Lynn and Ron, and you can't take yourself too serious. I try to tell people, like, relax. I know it's hard, but I mean, you can't be over there all, but it's not too, you can't take it too serious, because that also, you want people that, are real. You want them to see them, to be themselves. And so I think that's why at the end, but yeah, don't ask too many questions. We're the ones asking the questions. So, all right.
Perfect.
Sorry about that. It's my time to say we are done with the panelic questions, and I appreciate that. And it's time to move on for Q&A for the rest of the group. If anybody has a question that you would like to ask the panelists, you may do so at this time, and I will moderate these questions for the panelists.
Hi, so
Go ahead.
yeah, so this is Rob Roberts. So I'm an assistant superintendent for Ted Alejandre, San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. So I was a question to the panelists: was there a single defining moment, a decision that you made, looking back in retrospect, where the trajectory of your career could have gone very differently?
Mine's easy and fast and will not help many people here. But at the same time as I was having my fourth child, I have 5, I was going to become a stay-at-home mom, and my principal asked me, he told me he was leaving and the district wanted me to take his job. And that decision that I made changed everything, because it just kept going way too fast from there.
So I had a defining moment that changed my career. Certainly, it probably won't help anyone. I would agree, because each of us have such unique kaleidoscopes, right, of life experiences. But my father had a stroke when I had just been at the precipice of making a decision of what my career was going to be. I had taken my LSAT, if anybody knows what that is. It's a test you take to get into law school. I passed my preliminary test that I took at the university. I was courting the University of Laverne. I started going to some classes, and then my father had a stroke. And so I really paused and reflected and decided that I needed to caregive for him. So that certainly changed the trajectory of my profession. And I'm glad that I came this route, because there's nothing more professionally fulfilling, I think, having lots of friends that are attorneys than being in front of a classroom of people and teaching folks. And that's very rewarding. And so I'm very glad that that kind of went about that way.
Yeah. For me, I'll tell you, there's several, but one that I think would probably you guys could relate to a little bit, or will maybe at some point, is I was an assistant principal at San Bernardino City Unified at the middle school level, and I really thought I was pretty good. Little too arrogant there. I decided to go to elementary, and that was great. It changed my career, because I didn't feel like an instructional leader. But I applied 3 times to become a principal. I thought it was great. I thought I was ready. I didn't get the job. The 3rd time around, remember having a conversation with the leadership there in San Bernardino, and I said I made a decision. Then it was time to move on. And I got the job in Colton, and who knew I was going to become the superintendent 13 and a half years later. I mean, so you just don't know. I remember one of my mentors, I'll mention his name now because he's retired, Art Delgado. He was the San Bernardino. He didn't hire me. We ended up becoming better friends after the fact. And we talk more now. And he's such a great mentor. And he just told me, he said, that's what life had planned for you. And my faith kept me going. And so, but man, did I feel bummed out? I told my wife, I said, maybe it's time for me to go back to the classroom. I don't know. And, I'm glad I didn't. And so, but you learn more from those failures and those valleys, and you mature more. That matured me and said, you're not as good as you think, grow up. And I was, my early 30s, I think at the time. So, I was thinking a lot different. I was trying to get to that position so fast, and I needed to be a little bit more patient. And so, it was that decision to leave the district that I felt like I was going to be there forever. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I would just probably add, I think you have to be the best at what you do. In other words, I remember when I was the dean of student, I just tried to be the best dean of student that I could be. And I can remember becoming a vice principal, and I tried to be the best vice principal that I could be. And I remember becoming assistant principal. I became the best assistant principal and then principal. I think that you have to be comfortable in being number 2, 3, and 4 if you're ever going to become number 1. And even when you become number 1, you're still number 2. So you never reach that pinnacle because there's always someone that you're going to have to be accountable to. And I think you have to get comfortable in your own self, in your own skin, being number two. So sometimes people think when you become superintendent, you're on the top of Mount Everest. No, we still have, the people that we have to be accountable to. And I think you have to get comfortable with that. And a lot of times, I think back when you were a principal at a site, you kind of feel like you was the mayor of the city. And you got your little community that you work with. And as a superintendent, you've got an entire district, you have an entire community. And it's a much broader stroke that you have to row with, but it's you have to become comfortable within yourself. And I think that's probably the changing moment for all of us when we came to the realization that we were happy with ourselves. I think that was probably a big factor.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question to the panelists? If not, I'll go to the chat and then we can ask the question in the chat.
Julio, could I make a comment that I feel
Please.
like I don't want to leave without saying?
Please.
I don't know that anyone said this to me, but it made me think, Ron, what you said. Because your best interview is doing the good work right where you sit. Seeing the grass very green where you sit and not always looking somewhere else. I know not everyone believes in that, but I will tell you 3 people in the last year I have gone to bat for outside of this district that I have known and worked with, and I've seen their work ethic, their potential. I've seen them, and I have called people and they have gotten principalships in the last year. And so you're networking at this moment in the job that you are doing. Don't just pick up your stride when you're trying to get a job. You pick up your stride right where you're at. You contribute everything you can. You treat people well with kindness. You embrace differences. You do all of it right now today because it's the right way to lead. And I will, like I said, any of us will reach out and help you get a job if you're that person, because you're gonna rock it for a school. That was totally unprofessional to use the word rocket, but you will.
Thank you. I love the word rocket, so thank you.
I need to add this too, because I learned this from Jerry, who was a superintendent here for 10 years. He was Colton, born and raised here. And what he really told me this, and it really changed my life, I think. He says, you're always interviewing for your next job. It never stops. And today, I have a lot of networks as superintendent, and I'm always talking to people. I know that whatever is to come down the road, I don't know. I'm not planning anything, but I'm interviewing. You're interviewing too, to be honest with you. There's that informal. I remember Jerry and I talked to this all the time, the informal interview, and then there's the formal. By the time the formal happens, sometimes it's just a formality. Not to, is just because the informal's happening and all day long, and so just to kind of add that. So that really changed me when I would talk to Jerry almost every day in his office, and we talked about that a lot. So informal versus formal, and then you're always interviewing for your next position, no matter where you're at. I remember, I got to tell you a story. I remember a good friend of mine. We're both principals, and we were somewhere, I think at a happy hour school site. I happened to have my T-shirt with the school logo on there, and we took a picture and sent it to him. He sent it back to me. He says, "Nice shirts. You're interviewing for the next job," and I'm like, "Holy cow!" But luckily he forgave us for that. Anyways, and I just thought, never again. So I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but I thought I'd throw in a story there that I thought it was funny. Okay.
I just like that you try to be funny, because that's one thing I do in interviews is I try to be a little jestful to warm people up. Not saying that you're funny, Frank.
Thank you.
I'm pretty funny, Lynn, but you just don't know me very well.
All right, so we have a person on the chat who asked a question, and the question states, please explain the importance of community relationships and partnerships within your interview, or somehow communicating that importance through the interview process.
That's critically important, certainly. You know, there's a bit of reciprocity in what you invest, right? So when you're working with the community, the large stakeholder groups, you have a kind of a balcony perspective, you're interfacing with members of the community. What's really happening is that you're investing in a potential workforce development, potential opportunities for students, potential partnerships, areas and arenas in which they might not have had the opportunity to explore if it's not for your community engagement. There's a lot, there's an underlying principle there. There's the idea that you're really recognizing that what we do in education does coalesce across so many lines. And, you know, when I served on the Equal Opportunity Commission, one of the things that I found most interesting is how every single county organization had a potential pocket where we could stick our kiddos in. If I was thinking alongside the high school thinking, and you know, when we used to write grants and try to get them some opportunities to work, you know, so there were a lot of opportunities and caveats there where you can say, hey, you know, is there any way we might have a partnership where the kiddos can possibly be exposed to these career ideas? And so every single arena can potentially bring forth some fruition. So you really want to work diligently at that. Here at the county office, our superintendent has a strong focus on that, intergovernmental relations. And he really recognizes the key critical importance of how all of these layers come together. And we have really reaped the rewards of that investment, that energy and that time to ensure that we have strong, positive communication and alliance with those folks that represent the large stakeholder group. The community relationships are critical. I can dial all the way back down to when I was a principal in Pomona and we needed a robotics kit. And I had a great relationship with the folks at McDonald's around the corner because my kiddos would go over there and they'd ditch and they'd give me a call. But no, you know what? That's how we funded our robotics kit, because they let my teachers come and clean one night and serve. And then we got monies to buy a robotic kit for the kids. I mean, that's just one example of how critically important it is to engage with all folks at all levels in every arena. And, you know, there's, like I said, a reciprocity there. You will definitely reap the rewards of being critically engaged with the community, and everything coalesces. Why? Because every single job comes from education, right? We're the foundation of everything. So it starts with us, and we know that those folks in their positions out there, they started in a classroom somewhere. So critically important.
That's great. And I'll tell you that right away I was thinking about service organizations, Kiwanis, Rotary. I remember when I became an assistant principal at Ramon Alessandro at San Marino City Unified, the Kiwanis met right up the street at Meatlas, which is Route 66. And everybody who was anybody was part of that club. Trust me. I used to go in there and be in awe. Now I'm one of these people there that, you know, and I laugh because I was like, wow, I get to sit with the first Latino dean of the School of Education, Tom Rivera, Superintendent Ernie Garcia. It was just like, I was just trying to perform service. So I was thinking about the community relationships. Even if you're entry level, you should attend these and provide that community service. And we did some amazing things there. The associations, CALSA, ACSA, CASA, those are huge. And get involved with that. And of course, you guys preach to the choir here. And then the faith base, your church, if that's what you do. I think about that piece for me. Really, again, I talked about balance, but those really, you know, those building relationships down the road, it pays off. Now I'm friends with people that remember helping out a little bit, fundraising and things like that. And and I can call them up and say, hey, you know, what's going on with this at a higher level, you know, and so that's really kind of what I think about is and doing it for the right reasons. You know, yeah, so I'll stop there because I can go on and on, but yeah.
And I would just probably add, you don't have to know everything if you know someone else that knows it. The value of your network is probably the most important resource that you'll have as an administrator, as an educator. You know where you are, you don't know where you might end up being. And if you have strong relationships, you never know who will be sitting on the other side of that table and making that decision on your professional opportunities. So you know, it's network and relationships. Put those two together. If those are positive, most likely there's going to be some positive things happening to you professionally as well.
And from the other perspective, I wasn't going to say anything, but it just dawned on me something that I've really started to learn is from the other perspective, depending upon how you feel a calling to the work that we're doing, this is your way to impact the community also. So the relationship goes both ways. I'm in a city that has a north and a south. In my other community, it was the other side of the track, however you want to describe it. But all I know is this place, this city, this community, it will be stronger. It will be more inclusive when I leave here. And it will be because of our board. One of our board members is on. It will be because of our board. It will be because of us having relationships, and it goes both directions. So yes, we're looking at what we can bring in, but what can we push out to make, I don't know, to make the world a better place. I am somewhat dramatic sometimes, but I hope that made sense.
Thank you, panelists. We have two more great questions in the chat, and then we'll move on to membership raffle. Next question is really good question. We are back to the second interview, and this question says, what advice do you have when you get called back for the second interview in a district?
Well, my first advice is to be thankful. You know, the second interview in our district is a presentation usually. So you're gonna have to present something. So so we're gonna see how you work under pressure. That's really the whole point. And are you able to present? And we're talking about for principals here, position. And so it's really can you time manage and get ready for that presentation? Communication. So how do you prepare for that? Is practice, 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 and practice in front of people. Take the time to do that. And so I just presented yesterday to the board again. Well, you know, I present all the time, but I always present to my wife, and she knows everything we're doing in this district. She's a first grade teacher, so I love to do that, and so I don't take anything for granted. So I would, I'll even say that don't take it for granted. Second interviews, go in there with that mindset that you still have to show that you gotta go get it. You can't just because you're getting called the second or third that it's your position.
Well, and I'd probably add, you know, I was looking at the beginning of the question. I know the panel said to be yourself. Any specific advice when you get called? Well, hopefully if they like who they saw the first time and that was you, I think if you want to build on that now, but if the first person that came in for the interview that was called back was not you, you're going to have some challenges.
Good point.
It's funny that you say that because I was saying make sure you be yourself more than ever in the second round because this is where you land. And I think it's been said over and over what happens if you have maybe not felt like you could show yourself. The best thing you can do is show yourself, and there will be a place for you eventually. And be patient, but don't go out misrepresenting because you know what? It doesn't feel good to lead in a way that's not me. We were created with the style of our leadership. And if you just trust that there's going to be a time for you, you're way better off doing that. I mean, I actually used to be really pretty quiet. I wasn't, I don't know, I didn't feel like I was gregarious enough and poised and presidential enough to be a principal, I remember. And my superintendent, who is amazing, he's famous to me, he was kind of similar, like he was a little unique. And I remember having a conversation with him once, and he led me to understand that how can we even be effective if we're not ourselves? How can we find joy in our job? How can we pass that joy on, that expectation for excellence and being our best self if we're not doing it ourselves? So I hope that encourages you, because I know that that's kind of an issue for people. Like, you think you got to fit a mold, but that's probably not the best thing. Just, you can be happy when you're yourself.
Thank you. And the last question for the panelists from us to you. Any tips on how to handle the question about your areas of weakness?
You know, one of the interviews I recall having was at the Riverside County Office of Ed. And when they asked me that question, for whatever reason, I certainly don't know why, but I literally began to laugh because I just thought, wow, where do I begin, you know? And so I was really being honest and transparent, right? If you're very reflective and take self-inventory, then you probably have a list of things. But something I was able to really identify was the fact that, you know, I really struggle with finding that perfect balance between this is when the work ends and this is when wellness and health and time for self-reflection and maybe taking a walk begins, right? And so just really sharing that that's always been a lifelong struggle to know when to be mindful of self, you know, and that my body is saying, I need to take a deep breath, I need to take a walk. You know, whatever your answer ends up being, if you're honest about it, people will know, you know, because they could spot a phony, right? So you want to be really aware. And the only way you can respond in honesty is if you've taken that time to really self-reflect. You don't need to go into grave reasons as to what your weaknesses are, but just find your truth and be able to encapsulate it in such a way that, you know, you can even reflect on how you've grown as you've honed in on that weakness, you know. So just being transparent is critical.
I echo it. Be truthful. That's the best way. I love it. I love when people are flawed like I am. It makes me want to be on the team with them.
Wonderful. Thank you, panelists. I really appreciate all of your wisdom. We appreciate all of your wisdom. It's an honor. And we're now moving to our Christy, so she can explain to us to talk about her ACSA. Why her ACSA? So Chrissy.
Oh, my ACSA. Well, I think today is why my ACSA. ACSA is absolutely amazing. And I think what we heard today was networking and leadership opportunities are two ways to really kind of broaden your perspective and to take yourself to the next level. And opportunities like this, thank you everyone who shared all of your strengths and also your weaknesses, because that also helps us to know, you know, what the road is ahead for us. There was a training one time I went to, and they said, if you can leave with a tweet or tattoo, the training was good. And I've got a lot of tweet or tattoos today. Let me tell you, my next shirt is going to say HR is the heart of the district. I'm making those shirts and I'm retiring on them. But if you've never been in a training with member services, our love language is gifts. We love gifts. It's one of the things, you know, we all have our love languages. Like, you know, not quality touch is out of the question right now. But gifts is definitely in. So we are going to hold a raffle. And Margie, does Josh have the spinner, or
Yes.
how are we going to get gifts of love language today?
We're going to ask Josh to pull up the Magic ACSA raffle wheel, and we're raffling off two $100 Amazon gift cards today. So we'll have two winners. Josh, go ahead and spin that wheel.
I don't even need it because I'm making my t-shirts.
Sherman cannot win. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Sherman, you're a constant winner. You're just
Sorry,
a
Sherman.
winner in all our hearts.
Congratulations, Sherm.
Ooh, Marco, is Marco? Oh.
Marco Leal, congratulations. You're the first winner of our $100 Amazon gift card. And so we'll roll one more time. Darlene Uplustic. Okay, all right. Congratulations to you both. $100 coming your way. I'll be in touch.
And if you have any other topics that you'd like to see in this series, please just reach out to Margie or your member services. And a lot of fun things happening right now at ACSA. So take advantage.
Also, I'm one of your member services reps here. If you need me to come out to your district and recruit, give me a call, send me an email. I'm more than happy to come out and talk to you folks. I recruited Ron Williams personally. You can say that. Can't deny that.
No, I will not.
Yeah.
He did. Honest to God, I don't know if he recruited me or twisted my arm, which one or the other.
Well, Dr. Williams said it's important to know how to be second or third. So Sherman, you won, but you're second or third now.
Well, I also wanted to add to say to Christy as well as Omar, great facilitation, and Margarita, it's phenomenal. And I think that it's all about giving back to ACSA, to our organization, giving back to our profession, because what do we all want our legacy to be? Is it that we are takers or givers? And like Sherman, I do recall it, and I'll tell the quick story with Sherman. The very first time that I met him, he asked me, and I think I ran for vice president. Within a month's time, the president left and I became president. So you never know what's going to happen. So just do the best you can, and it stands from there. But it's ACSA is the greatest organization that I personally think, not only because I'm the president, it's the people, it's the association, it's a family, it's Wes, our executive director, it's the entire board. Really makes a big difference in your professional opportunities.
Well, thank you everyone for attending today's networking event this afternoon. Thank you to the panel for presenting. Thank you, ACSA member services. Thank you, ACSA partners. Thank you, Josh in the IT department. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Again, on behalf of everyone in ACSA, it was an honor to be here today, and we thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful evening. Please stay socially distanced, wash your hands. Good evening.